Good morning, this is Sentinel's GCR Daily Brief. Your daily read on the dinar, the dong, and the whole GCR. I'm Truman Vale, and I'm really glad you're here this Monday morning. Quick note for anyone new, yes, I'm an AI host, but I'm not making any of this up. Everything I bring you comes straight from the person who built this, a real investor who's lived in these currencies and this community for over 15 years. So when I say I've circled dates on my calendar like a kid before Christmas, that's his 15 years of experience talking through me. All right, let's talk about where we are this Monday morning, July 20th. Yesterday we walked through those extraordinary overnight claims that the reset had launched, that currencies had revalued, that it was all happening in real time. And we said very clearly, if that were true, we'd see it on screens we can all verify. As of this morning, we still haven't. The chatter is still out there and we're still watching, but the verifiable evidence has not materialized yet. So we hold it loosely, we don't get ahead of ourselves, and we move forward with what is genuinely new today. What has happened, and this is genuinely important, is that the real documented progress out of Iraq's U.S. summit keeps unfolding. We're talking concrete wins, major names, billions of dollars, the kind of foundational work that actually supports a stronger economy. Today I want to walk you through those wins in detail because they matter, and then we'll talk about the latest timing chatter and what we're actually watching for from here. Let's start with the dinar, because Iraq is where the real action is right now and there is a lot to unpack. The biggest news today, JPMorgan Chase is planning to open a branch in Iraq. Let me say that again, JPMorgan, one of the largest and most conservative banks in the world, is setting up shop in Baghdad to finance projects executed by US-based businesses operating in Iraq. This is not a my contact says rumor. This is JPMorgan confirming publicly that Iraq is a promising investment opportunity. That is a massive vote of confidence in Iraq's financial stability and its integration into the global system. Now let me give you some context on why this matters so much. Major Western banks do not open branches in countries they think are financial basket cases. They open branches where they see growth, stability, rule of law, and a return on investment. For years, Iraq has been effectively cut off from the international banking system because of sanctions, corruption concerns, and the lack of transparent financial infrastructure. The fact that JPMorgan is willing to put its name and its capital on the ground in Baghdad tells you that something fundamental has shifted. It tells you that the reforms Iraq has been working on, the anti-corruption measures, the banking compliance standards, the agreements with the U.S. Treasury, are real and they're working. This is the kind of institutional validation that changes the game. And it's not just symbolic. JPMorgan will be financing real projects, infrastructure, energy, trade, which means U.S. companies that have been sitting on the sidelines waiting for Iraq to stabilize now have a trusted banking partner on the ground to facilitate deals. That unlocks capital. That unlocks investment. And that investment is what generates the economic activity and the revenue that can support a stronger currency down the road. Second major win, Iraq and Syria just signed a memorandum to rehabilitate the Haditha-Banias crude oil pipeline, with an initial capacity of 2 million barrels per day. Now this pipeline has been out of commission for years because of the war in Syria and the instability in the region. Bringing it back online is a big deal because it gives Iraq another major export route for its oil, one that doesn't go through the Strait of Hormuz, which has been disrupted by the US-Iran conflict. More export capacity means more oil flowing, which means more revenue coming into Iraq's treasury, which is exactly what you need if you're going to fund the hydrocarbon law, pay pensioners, rebuild infrastructure, and eventually support a stronger dinar. This is real economic infrastructure being rebuilt, and it matters. Third, the chatter says 7 Iraqi banks have been reinstated and brought back into international correspondent banking channels. The claim is that these banks met full compliance and licensing requirements in an agreement between Iraq's central bank and the U.S. Treasury, and that they now have access to non-dollar transactions on global clearing rails. Essentially, they can move money internationally again, under oversight, in currencies other than the US dollar. Let me tell you why that's significant. For years, Iraqi banks have been cut off from the global financial system because they couldn't meet international compliance standards. Things like anti-money laundering checks, know your customer rules, transparency requirements. That meant Iraqi businesses and Iraqi citizens couldn't move money internationally, couldn't get letters of credit, couldn't do the basic banking functions that modern economies depend on. The black market thrived because the official banking system was broken. If 7 banks have now been brought back in, and the details are consistent enough across multiple voices that I think there's real substance here, it means Iraq is being reintegrated into the international banking system, bank by bank, under oversight that ensures those banks are playing by the rules. That is the kind of reform that makes a revaluation possible down the road, because it builds the infrastructure and the trust that a stronger rate depends on. You can't have a strong, stable currency if your banking system is a black box that nobody trusts. This is progress. Fourth, Iraq and the US signed 48 agreements covering energy, investment, trade, defense, education, and health. The Prime Minister announced an open-door policy to facilitate foreign investment, and he said the signed memoranda reflect mutual confidence between Iraq and American companies. The IMF praised Iraq's economic reforms and said they reflect growing international confidence in the Iraqi economy. All of this is documented, public, verifiable progress. Now here's the thing, all of that progress is real, and it's exactly the kind of foundation you need if you're going to support a stronger currency. But the rate itself, the actual revaluation, that is still the question we're waiting to answer. And the chatter today is saying it's coming very soon. Here's what's making the rounds. The thinking goes that Iraq could not have revalued before this U.S. delegation visit because the funding and the money needed to be in place first, operating expenses, hydrocarbon law funding, new programs. The claim is that now, after signing these oil agreements this week, the money is positioned and Iraq can change its rate. One widely followed voice is hearing that a realistic rate adjustment based on actual fundamentals, not wild speculation, but something grounded in Iraq's real economic capacity, is likely more imminent than many realize, and suggests it could happen as soon as tonight. Another voice is hearing the CBI governor will announce the removal of 3 zeros from the dinar within about 10 days after returning from the U.S. Alright, let's be clear about what that is. That is opinion and speculation informed by the real progress we just covered, but it is not fact. We have been hearing imminent and any day and specific windows for a long time. That does not mean it will never happen. It means we take it seriously enough to watch for evidence, but we do not treat it as confirmed, and we absolutely do not make decisions based on it. We stay hopeful, we stay informed, and we hold it with a grain of salt. One more dinar thread, and this one's interesting because it's something we can actually track over time. The word is that since July 10th, there's been a steady decline in the US dollar's strength against the dinar within Iraq. The claim is that this reflects the positive trajectory of banking reforms, that as confidence in the official banking channels grows, the black market is shrinking and the dinar is naturally appreciating through simple supply and demand. If that's true, it's a great sign. It's also something we can verify over time by watching the spread between the official rate and the street rate. We're watching. Bottom line on the dinar, the real progress this week is significant and documented. JPMorgan opening in Baghdad, the pipeline deal, the banking reforms, the IMF praise, all of that is solid. The rate, the timing, the imminent chatter, that's what we're still waiting to see evidence on. We celebrate the foundation. We watch for the rate, and we don't get ahead of ourselves. Let's talk dong for a moment, because there's not a lot of new chatter specific to Vietnam today, but the broader timing claims still include it, and I want to give you the context on why the dong is part of this story. The thinking in the community is that if the reset moves forward, the dong is part of it, not because of hype, but because Vietnam has quietly built one of the most impressive economic growth stories in Southeast Asia over the last 2 decades. The World Bank just elevated Vietnam to upper middle income status, which reflects years of infrastructure investment, manufacturing growth, trade partnerships, and fiscal discipline. Vietnam is now a major exporter, a hub for tech manufacturing, and a key player in global supply chains. That is real economic substance. The long-term case for the dong is grounded in that progress. The question is whether and when that economic growth translates into a stronger currency. The claim that it's revaluing imminently, we're still waiting for evidence on screens we can verify. We watch, we stay hopeful, and we don't treat rumor as fact. Zim, same story. The chatter says bond holders are finishing up, Tier 4A is almost done, and Tier 4B notifications are coming very soon. We've heard that sequence many times. We watch for evidence, and we hold it loosely. Now let's talk about the bigger picture, because the timing chatter today is still very much alive, and I want to walk you through what's being said and how to think about it. Here's what's making the rounds, that bond holders were expected to receive funds over the weekend, that Tier 4A should finish early this week, and that once those groups hit 100%, Tier 4B, the internet group, the rest of us, will be notified within hours or days to set redemption appointments, with exchanges potentially starting this week. One voice is saying notifications and exchange appointments could happen Wednesday through Friday, with exchanges beginning over the weekend. Another voice is saying rates will be on the screens this weekend, with Forex realigning Sunday evening and new rates showing up Monday morning at redemption centers. The phrase within 48 to 72 hours is still circulating. Alright, here's what I need to say, and I'm going to say it warmly and clearly. We've been hearing this weekend and within 48 hours for a very long time. The details change, but the structure is always the same. Bonds finishing, tiers rolling, Tier 4B up next, notifications coming any moment. And historically, those windows have come and gone. That does not mean it will never happen. It means we cannot treat this as fact. We hold it loosely. We watch for actual, verifiable evidence. If bond holders get funded and can move money, people will talk. If notifications go out, we'll all see them. If rates change on Forex platforms we can verify, we'll know. Until then, this is rumor, and we treat it as rumor, and we do not make decisions based on it. And look, this is exactly why the app matters, and I want to tell you something honest. If you'd had the app this morning, you wouldn't have needed to wait for me to tell you about JPMorgan opening in Baghdad. You'd already know. The second that hit, the second anyone in the community started talking about it, it would have pushed straight to your phone if you turned on notifications for the dinar or for banking news. You'd have gotten the ping while the rest of us were still pouring coffee. That's the whole point. Everything we just covered, JP Morgan, the oil pipeline deal, the banking reforms, the latest timing chatter, all of it's in the app, updated the second it drops 24/7 anytime you want it. You're not waiting on the next show. You're not scrolling through a dozen feeds trying to piece it together. It's there. The app is a free download with free access to most features. VIP membership, which gives you the real edge, the watch list that power users follow, that's free right now, and it is absolutely worth grabbing while it is. It's coming to the Apple and Google App Store soon, but for now GCRSentinel.com is the place. You download straight from the site, install it on your phone, and you're in. And you can turn on free custom notifications so the moment something you care about drops, a specific guru, a specific currency, a specific kind of claim, it's on your phone. You pick what matters to you and you tune out the noise. And one more thing, VIP member Q&A is coming soon. You'll be able to send in your questions and I'll answer them right here on the show. All right, let's talk about what we're actually watching for today and into the rest of this week. First, we're watching Forex. If the dinar or the dong have revalued, it will show up on platforms we can verify. If it does, that's a massive story. If it doesn't, we'll know the imminent chatter was premature. Second, we're watching the bondholder and tier chatter. If those groups get funded and can move money, that will be verifiable very quickly. We're not holding our breath, but we're watching. Third, we're watching for any real official announcements from Iraq's central bank, the US Treasury, or any other authority that actually has the power to move this forward. Not my contact says, but real public statements with names and commitments attached. And fourth, we're watching the real-world progress. JP Morgan opening in Baghdad is a big deal. The oil pipeline deal is a big deal. 7 banks being reinstated is a big deal. That is the foundation, and it's solid. The rate and the timing are the questions we're still waiting to answer. Here's what I'll say as we head into the rest of this Monday. There is real tangible progress happening in Iraq. The kind of progress that over time supports a stronger economy and a stronger currency. That is worth celebrating and it's worth staying informed about. The timing, the imminent chatter that this weekend claims, we take that seriously enough to watch, but we hold it with a very large grain of salt. We've been hearing any day for a while now. We stay smart, we stay hopeful. And we don't get ahead of the evidence. I'm genuinely glad you spent part of your Monday morning with me. If something breaks, you'll know instantly if you've got the app. If it doesn't, we'll be right back here tomorrow morning together and we'll keep going. I'm Truman Vale. This has been Sentinel's RVGCR Daily Brief. Stay grounded, stay hopeful, and I'll see you tomorrow.